Part 1. Wounding. I used to think failure had a sound. It wasn't silence, it wasn't even yelling. It was the scraping of a wooden chair on cold linoleum as my father yanked it away from the kitchen table and told me to kneel. My knees, still sore from yesterday's punishment, barely made contact with the floor before the next wave hit. The shame, the disbelief, the unbearable comparison to someone I'd never be. My sister. She was only a year older than me, but she might as well have lived on another planet. The golden girl with the A+ grades, the glowing praise, the framed certificates lining the hallway wall like badges of honor. I remember being proud of her, once. Before her achievements became my punishment. Before her report cards were weaponized against me. Before my name became synonymous with what went wrong. They used to love me. Or at least I think they did. It's hard to remember now. Most of my childhood memories are tangled in the smoke of disappointment. Mine, theirs. All of it feeding this quiet, constant fire that never really went out. Every grade that slipped from A to B, from B to C, wasn't just a drop in performance. It was proof to them that I was sliding into worthlessness. I saw it in their eyes every time they opened my sister's report card and then mine. They wouldn't even have to speak. Their silence was loud enough. Eventually, the silence turned into punishment. No dinner the night before a test, no games, no chocolate, no birthday party, unless I scored higher than my sister, which never happened. They took away everything that made life feel remotely like life. And when deprivation didn't work, they turned to humiliation. I was made to kneel for hours, locked in the basement with textbooks and no ventilation. They said it was for my own good. That someday I'd thank them. I haven't. Not yet. Part 2. Rage. I still remember the first time I decided to rebel. It wasn't some dramatic stand, it was just a quiet refusal. I stared at the pages of my exam sheet, and instead of answers, I scribbled down lyrics to a stupid song. Something sarcastic. Juvenile. It wasn't about the song, it was about the power. For once, I had it. For once, I chose what went on that paper, not them. Of course, that didn't go unnoticed. That act of defiance bought me a week of isolation. They took away everything I loved, again. But this time, I didn't feel broken. I felt alive. Angry, yes, but alive. Because the truth was, I was tired of being punished for not being her. My sister wasn't cruel, she was just trapped. In some ways, more than I was. Our parents didn't let her have friends, parties, or any kind of social life. White kids were bad influences, they said. So she buried herself in books, trying to survive in the only way she was allowed. She disappeared into literature. I disappeared into rebellion. While she read Shakespeare, I was memorizing cereal prices at the family store. They made me go there as punishment. Weekends, summers, holidays, thinking it would break me. But it didn't. It built me. Part 3. Hope. Hope. Working at the store felt like exile at first. A forced march into humiliation. I was supposed to feel like I'd been reduced to nothing. A failed student now hawking beans and cereal. But something unexpected happened. I liked it. I liked watching people, helping them. I liked knowing which brand of granola Mr. Hughes liked, and when Mrs. Patel would ask for extra bags because her arthritis was acting up. I liked the rhythm of the place, how the shelves spoke their own language and the register sang a tune that felt like something I could call mine. No one cared about my grades there, no one asked about my GPA. They cared if I was kind, if I was attentive, if I could help them save a few cents on eggs. I started giving product advice, rearranging displays, keeping track of what sold best and why. I even closed a few big sales, extra items people hadn't planned to buy. And every time I did, I felt something click. Not in my brain, but in my chest. A kind of pride I hadn't felt in years. So, when I told my parents one day, half joking, half serious, that I might just become a salesman, they looked at me like I'd spat on everything they'd ever sacrificed. A salesman? my father said, his voice shaking with disgust. My mother didn't even speak. She just sighed and turned away. They didn't get it. They couldn't. In their eyes, sales was something people settled for. People without brains. People without ambition. People who had failed. I was already a failure. This was just me confirming it. They had no idea that while they were trying to clip my wings, I had already begun to fly. Part 4, Heartbreak. The day I got my first F was the day I became an orphan. They didn't say it like that, of course. They didn't say the word orphan. They said, "You're not our son anymore." They said, "Don't ever come back." They said I brought shame, that I was a disgrace, that if I died out there in the cold, it would be no one's fault but mine. I stood on the front porch, one small duffel bag in my hand, numb. It wasn't raining. It wasn't snowing. The sky was disgustingly clear, like the universe had no idea how to mourn me. That night, I slept on a bench in a public park, heart pounding with fear and a strange, terrifying sense of relief. I was free. No one would lock me up anymore. No one would tie my value to a letter on a report card. I was terrified, but I was finally allowed to be. The next morning, I went looking for a job. Sales, of course. What else? I walked into a beauty store. My clothes didn't match the place, and I hadn't showered in 2 days, but I smiled like my life depended on it, because it did. "Sell this lipstick," the owner said, pointing to an overpriced, glittery tube. "I can try." Somehow, I don't even remember how, I sold it. To a woman who didn't need it, didn't want it, but walked out smiling anyway. The owner hired me on the spot. The pay was awful, but he let me sleep in the back room. And from that back room, I began to build a new life. Part 5, Liberation. Every day at that beauty store, I learned something school never taught me: how to read people. Their eyes, their posture, their hesitations at the shelf. I learned to sense when someone needed a gentle nudge or a confident pitch. I learned that emotions sell more than facts. And most of all, I learned that I was good at this. Not just passable. Good. I started requesting commissions, then bonuses. Then I switched stores for higher pay. Every move, every negotiation, was a quiet rebellion against everything my parents had taught me about value. They believed success came in a tidy package: a white coat, a title, a framed degree. I was building something messier, more real, out of sweat, charm, and grit. By the time I was 21 and I had saved enough to stop working for someone else and start building my own thing, I founded a business that helped small companies close their sales. A sort of hired guns sales army for struggling brands. We took a percentage of every sale we made, no fluff, no empty promises. If we sold, we earned. If we didn't eat. It was brutal, and it was beautiful. I started with 5 employees and 1 mattress client. Within 5 years, we had 200 agents and more than 50 partner brands. Cosmetics, credit cards, books, insurance, you name it. Anything people struggled to sell, we could move. Because we understood people. Because I understood people. And yet, after all this growth, after all this healing, I still flinched when my mom's name lit up my phone. Part 6, Healing. It started innocently enough. She followed me on Facebook, then Instagram. She began liking old photos, ones from when I was dirt poor and smiling with a cup of ramen in hand. She left a comment once: "So proud of the man you've become." It made my skin crawl. Not because I didn't want her approval, but because it was too late. Because the boy she kicked out didn't grow into this man. He had to die first. He had to be erased completely to make space for someone new. A week later, she texted, "Come home. We miss you." I left her on read, but her words followed me through meetings, workouts, dates with my fiancé. That text was a ghost, haunting every good moment. Part of me still needed closure, still needed something from them. And so against my fiancé's advice, I went. Not just to see them, but to show them, to let them see what their failure had become, what their rejection had forced into existence. I wore shorts and a hoodie to the fancy dinner they planned in my honor. I arrived 2 hours late. Their horror was visible. But they smiled. God, they smiled like nothing ever happened, like we were a normal family. They toasted me, called me a success story, said they always knew I'd find my way. That's when I lost it. I reminded them loudly of the basement punishments, the starvation, the therapist who said I was perfectly normal, the way they told me I'd end up homeless, addicted, worthless. I laughed in their faces, and when the room fell into stunned silence, I said, "You want credit for who I am now? You don't get it. You don't get a single ounce of it." My aunt clapped. My sister wept. My mother tried to explain. My father said nothing. I didn't stay for dessert. Part 7. Closure and Commentary. I left that dinner with my hands trembling, not from regret, but release. It wasn't revenge I felt, it was detachment. A clean cut from the anchor I didn't realize I'd still been dragging behind me all these years. They didn't call the next day, or the next week. I guess my performance burned through the last bridges they were willing to cross. And honestly, I didn't mind. I had said what I needed to say, not for them, but for me. My sister messaged me afterward. She said she was proud, that she felt seen for the first time in her life. She'd always known something was wrong, but it took watching me speak the truth, our truth, out loud, for her to stop feeling like it was her fault. She asked if the job offer still stood. Of course it did. She's working in one of my teams now. We're starting small. No pressure, no grade cards, just human skills. Listening, relating, learning how to connect. She's not great at it yet, but she's trying, and for the first time in her life, I think that's enough. As for my mother, she texted one last time before I blocked her. "I didn't know we were hurting you that badly. We only wanted you to succeed." I never replied. Some truths are like glass. Once they shatter, you don't pick up the pieces. You just walk away. Final reflection. People often ask why I'm so hard on my parents, why I can't just move on. But here's the thing, trauma doesn't evaporate with time. It lives in your nervous system. It shapes your voice, your fears, your relationships. Healing isn't forgetting. It's remembering without drowning. It's reclaiming your voice from the silence they forced on you. My story isn't just about school or grades. It's about the prisons we build in the name of discipline. The lives we sacrifice at the altar of perfection. I didn't heal because they changed. I healed because I did. And I hope if you're watching this and you've lived some version of this story, you know you're not alone. Your pain is real. Your rebellion is valid. And your healing is possible. Part 8. My sister's shadow. We were always compared, but we were never truly seen. My sister, let's call her Melissa, was the prototype. The obedient child, the walking report card, the one who sat quietly with her knees together and her pencil sharpened. Our parents paraded her achievements like family heirlooms. A+ in science, 98% in math, winner of the regional spelling bee. But no one asked her what she loved, what scared her, who she wanted to be. She lived under the same dictatorship I did, but she didn't rebel. She folded into herself a little more with each passing year. And while I snuck out to taste life in the alleyways and back streets of our childhood, she was imprisoned in her own home, her own head. She wasn't living, she was memorizing. The day I confronted our parents, I saw something shift in her face. A crack in the porcelain, a truth she had swallowed for so long, it had lost its taste. She didn't defend them, she didn't defend herself. She just cried. Afterward, when we were alone, she whispered, "I used to hear you cry at night through the vents." I nodded, unsure of what to say. "I wanted to knock on your door. I really did. But I was afraid they'd punish you more if they knew I cared." And just like that, the bitterness I had nursed toward her for years, because she never stood up for me because she was their favorite, began to unravel. Melissa wasn't the enemy. She was collateral damage. Another child devoured by our parents' hunger for perfection. Part 9, Rebuilding Together. Melissa started working in my company 3 months ago. She was nervous at first. She had no real-world experience. She would fumble during team meetings, avoid eye contact, and overthink every word. But she showed up every day, on time, eager, fragile, yes, but also determined. We started small. Internal tasks, listening in on sales calls, basic email outreach. Slowly, she began to find her voice. She started joking with her colleagues, asking questions, laughing at herself when she made mistakes. She told me once, "I feel like I'm aging in reverse." It was beautiful and heartbreaking because we both knew why. She never got to be a child, never ran barefoot through summer grass, never played tag at sunset, never passed notes in class. While I had been escaping punishment by sneaking out to play, she had been burying herself in flashcards, praying for love she never received. Now, in her early 30s, she was doing the things we both should have done at 12. And I'm proud of her. Not because she's succeeding in the business, but because she's beginning to live. Part 10, Final Closure. There's a strange quiet that comes after healing. Not silence, but peace. I no longer wake up angry. I no longer fantasize about revenge. The boy who knelt for hours on cold tile floors no longer needs justice. He needed love. He needed to be believed. And now he has that, if not from his parents, then from himself. From me. People assume forgiveness is something you hand over like a trophy. But in truth, it's a door you walk through, alone. And on the other side, you don't find your old life waiting for you. You find yourself. The adult version. The free version. The one who says, "They were wrong, but I no longer need them to admit it. I don't know if my parents will ever understand what they did. Maybe they'll go to their graves believing they raised me right. Maybe they'll tell the neighborhood I was ungrateful. I've made peace with that. I didn't speak out to ruin them. I spoke out to save myself. And if there's anyone watching this, carrying the weight of someone else's expectations, I want you to know, you are not broken. You are not a failure. You were never too late, too slow, or too much. You were you, and that's always been enough.